Hello everyone. I would like to talk about today something very important to me, actually. It's something very huge, the human condition. And it is the concept of that which is unacceptable, and also the concept of running into the embrace of love, the unknown embrace of love. So in a sense, I want to talk to you about that which is unacceptable, and in a sense also talk about my experience of running into the embrace of the unknown. Because you see, the human being, when it becomes aware that it is more than a story, it is no longer just relating on one dimension. In other words, once there is depth, there's multiple layers, there's many views. And so consciousness has not just one truth, but many truths based on the many angles that one can perceive through. So we see that once we plant firm axioms of how reality has to be, we are in a sense placing laws where we are not accepting anything else. It's unacceptable to not have rationality. And you see, it is only unacceptable when there is a sense of other in one's intelligence. In other words, there's a sense of another person. There's a sense of other. So when you say everything is happening in your mind, you put your sense of identity, your name, on a wobbly platform. Because you see, we, the human system, as it has chosen to observe everything, it has in a sense chosen to go through every experience. So if you see there's more than one type of cake and your whole life is just you and cake, you're going to try some other cakes. You're going to try all the cakes. But how can life become more than a piece of cake? Because we don't want to give answers that do not belong to some questions. You see, man is a evolutionary process, but also a self-aware one. And so, by observing nature, we see that the application of consciousness continues into formless understanding. So in other words, what I want to say, what is unknown to one side of the coin is not known to the other. Each side of the coin knows their reality. What is unknown is the combination. What is unknown is the backs that are behind each other, the reflections that are present. Guys, when you begin to think of an image of a God, you conceptualize that view with yourself. In other words, every person probably at this time in history has a sense of who they are on the thought level. They're like, all right, this is my name, I'm thinking, I'm using critical thinking, and is rational and logical and understands by using that, you know? But we see that humanity's direction is more than a story. And guys, in a sense, what this means is that, yes, logic is perfect. Logic has its place. Science has its place. Nobody is denying science. But why is science denying others? And so, we see that similarly, it is communication that is misleading. It is the communicators that are puppets to hands that cannot really touch each other. You may see my glove, you may see my hand with the glove on, but you're not really seeing the hand. You're not seeing the palm of my hand. So in other words, man is aware that he's not seeing part of the greater design, but he's still aware of the design, of this greater design. Because you see, guys, observance allows you to experience the moment through many senses of being, not just one sense of being. In other words, your concept of singularity and plurality is really what is dictating how you are perceiving your dictators. language needs to be playful. What that means is we want people to communicate ideas through states of being that were similar to their childhood, and in a sense what that means, that is open to say anything. A child doesn't lie because it doesn't care in that way. It just says what it has to when it has to. Do you know? A child is the opening of one mind to a world. In other words, when I see, let's say, a person older than me, I'm like, okay, his mind, his awareness, regardless of how consciously he's aware of it or not, has gone to these things, you know? And in other words, there's more of an existential wisdom in regards to the body type. In other words, I'm actually very analytic, but at the same time, I'm very playful with my analysis, so I let it be creatively done. So I use my relationship with the unknown, one of first realizing of infinite imagination, as in I can perceive anything, and two, the ability not to judge and to walk through any flame. That means I could go and be judged, but then I could continue walking. So you see, the person who is feeling shy is sitting down too much. It's not walking. Because you want to break yourself, and you realize you break yourself by, in a sense, looking back at the core of where your beliefs come from. And your beliefs, believe it or not, have come from your experiences. All beliefs come from experiences. Beliefs are, in a sense, the mask for the experience. Because if I tell you, yo man, you believe in chocolate cake and you've never had chocolate cake, well, guess what? You might be valid, but you're not true. You're not there, you know? And I like a pilot mentality. I like to see that humanity is here and I'm present here, right? And in how many moments of expansive and infinite and very conscious co-creation can I be part of? What that means is that I'm always dancing to the music of life. What that means is even though I see suffering every single moment, and there's a thing that happens when you become deep and sincere and honest. You don't avoid things. What that means is that before I would try to keep, this is years ago before the changes in my life happened. You see that there is so much complexity perhaps, you know, on one level, but on another level, your problem is simple. Honesty is a sense of, at the same time, communication of life. You need to realize you're alive before we put any measurement or value or judgment on your thing. Now, that moment is very important because that moment of being aware of your existence is one that is transcendent in quality. What that means is you're perhaps hearing my, what I'm saying right now, and you in a sense are just, you have one opinion, but look at all the opinions you have in moment about both my talk and yours, and trust me, in a couple years, it's going to completely change. Because consciousness changes in regards to the environment it's moving through. Why is there even a need for a journey, one thinks? Because there is the innate knowing that the nature of human experience is untouched because it is explorative. It is always exploring infinitely. In other words, your eyes don't end once you see the ending. It's a very, very important idea. You see, guys, I want you to look at your life, and I want you to in a second just stand still or sit still wherever you are. Take a few normal breaths, not deep breaths, anything special, you know, just normal breaths. You're just breathing out. Just breathe for a little bit. Just breathe. Look around. Don't think about anything. Don't think about what I'm doing either. Just be with yourself. Be in your moment. and just look at everything without an opinion and feel your breathing and don't have even an opinion on your breathing. And once you're there, know the stillness that you are, to see everything at once. In other words, when I think about a human being, is it better to be a person who has a lot of vision on a lot of understanding, or is it better to have a bigger bank account? And we realize understanding is more important. But we see, how do we attain understanding? I mean, is it something we Google? Is attaining understanding, we just go to Google and we're like, how do I attain understanding? I'll be honest, no. It's not something you go to anyone else. You don't go to a mechanical teacher or a physical human teacher. You can, if you like, to go to a human teacher, but that is of a different path, which I will talk about later for the human activity. But right now, let us see that there is a sense of vast knowing, because there's a sense of vast being that is found through the observance of our growth. We are, in a sense, the awareness to a physical body and the awareness to an operating system of it, which is the mind. We see this as everything. So guys, trust me, the person who is categorizing something, who is splitting things up to understand it, is forgetting one thing. You're doing more work than you have to. The exploration of your existence and your knowing should be in a burst. It should be in a glimpse, in an instant. In other words, when I thought about this, I'm like, I want my longing and knowing suddenly changes, as if my whole energies, my whole feeling, the whole room was changing. And I realized that my ability to conduct myself is not just from the human idea. The human form solidifies reality and suggests that world is a vase that's about to break, regardless of how many flowers one can put in it, you know? But it's intense. And I realized I want to amp up the intensity of my life. And I realized what you gain control consciously is the ability to be more aware of your experiences. So what that means is, let me tell you how intuition can, in a sense, be categorized in a very, I guess, I'll say poetic way as I can explain now. So I'm pretty much the poet that's talking about the unknown and the unseen and intuition. In other words, I'm simply talking about that stuff, but you know, through the understanding and the characteristics that I am. Because I see that the greatest solution is for a human being to use every minute of their life. In other words, your life should be based on how much creativity, how much awareness, how much learning you're receiving in every moment. And I realized if I time myself, I'm really slowing down my knowing process. And I don't know if a lot of you know what that means, but intuitively I knew if I'm like, okay, nice, I understand, past, present, future, perfect, I see it. But if I do follow that format, my breath would feel different. I would feel different because I'd feel in a different body. Do you know? I mean, it's okay, guys. Some people don't like to, you know, before they experience something, you want to be comfortable. Others want to wear tight suits to look good. You know what that means? That means that one wants to entertain the idea of themselves, the other wants to entertain themselves and what is there. In other words, guys, do you know why lying does not occur after some time when you're honest and when you're present? Because you're always here. You're not thinking about the future. What is a lie? It is a gossip that is feeding, that is in a sense molding the images of others, of other people. And you don't want to do that. It's so meaningless to do. I in a sense never talk about anyone's right, because I realize if I do, who's giving that commentary to me? My attention is going on that. So what in a sense they found to be this sacred inspiration, this touch of the divine. In other words, man touching God's finger, that moment has been defined in every human being's mind subconsciously. Because once you understand a system, once you create one separation out of one thing, there's infinite expansion. Do you know what I mean? There is only the concept of expansion when the same thing was observed another time, present again. So it is playfulness in creation, guys. It doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? You cannot name creativity if you notice it. You cannot name creativity. You can give infinite amounts of commentary on it, but you cannot name it because you cannot, in a sense, communicate an infinite quality. So what that means is some of your understanding of nature and life and things comes from your awareness to your nervous system and your awareness to your body and to your approach to life. Because there's a different way, guys, trust me. It's as if like you've been carrying your backpack in a very imbalanced way where it's always been like in your left hand and nothing feels right. Do you know what I mean? And this backpack has been heavy, and suddenly someone's like, okay, stop using your thoughts that way, buddy, and just stop for a second. Breathe. You are you first. You is your definition. So first you give a shape. You put spirit into your face. You put the expression. You in a sense communicate this expression through your mask, which is the view of everyone else, and how they are perceiving things. Because you see that, how can I best understand another human being? Well, by understanding myself, because this is my experience. So honesty means also the ability to allow experience just to happen and to observe it without opinion, and to then learn from that greater sense of intuitive and, in a sense, very analytic knowing. In other words, guys, what many people may have called intuition was bursts of their greater ability to explore their consciousness. In other words, one is very immersed into the game. And even after they see the screen, they see it's not live, it's just a game, they still can play it. But it doesn't mean that they are the characters in the TV screen. What that means is that language puts us into different dimensions of context, in which once we think we have a value and that's nothing, once we have the value, that's infinity. In other words, I'm walking in a park, and at the beginning I feel like nothing, and at the end of it I feel like infinity. And at the same time I realize I'm still I go for another walk. I do another set of walk after that, which I felt like infinity, because I continue to observe the experience. And what that means is, when you begin observing the experience, you're no longer grabbing to things. And because you're no longer grabbing to things, your life will become changing very quickly. So, I'll tell you, me as a kid, I was always laughing, in a sense. I was always very happy, right? Even I would hear the worst news, but somehow it would be humorous to me. But at the same time, I realized, just because I'm being humorous about it, it's not communicating to others that it's not being serious. So, regardless of our communication, we cannot communicate all the layers of who we are exactly. Because some of those layers were only our experiences, right? So, the greatest, I guess, tool in on this path is to see where you're starting from. That is my advice. I am not telling you how to journey across, at least in this thought. I'm not piloting you at this point. I am simply telling you of the ship's potential, which is you. Your consciousness is driven by your ability to be aware of the things around you and to acknowledge it completely and more holistically. That's it. Begin acknowledging things holistically, and you see you have no reason to hate. And at the same time, you have no reason to love objectively, but in a very freer, subjective way, you're present. So you may call it any other word you like, but I also feel myself and my livelihood in the silence of being. And the silence of being is very important, because the silence is part of life. I don't know how to explain this, but spend at least that's what fascinated me about meditation at first. Just the simple understanding that once you, out of a very dynamic day, bring yourself to a very calm, still point, you realize your grudges and your impulsive actions and all these things, you're like, damn, I'm late, I'm agitated, I'm depressed, whatever story fades away. You just have to let it fade by being observant of it. Do you know what I mean? I mean, once you see there's like dust on your shoulder, you can brush it off. You know, mankind is in a sense an evolving view, and it can be experienced through many senses of being that are perhaps very unknown to that view. In other words, scientists might find that one theory that explains everything, but I found that same theory in the raindrop, in the eyes of another human being, in the sun, in everything. So truth requires a bit of practice of yourself to be completely honest with yourself. And what that means is, when you're walking out, let's say go walk in a park, right? And as you're walking, you begin to see that there are many different types of people, and you have so many opinions. So this is at first what happens to you if you've totally avoided ideas of your own intimate relationship. In other words, I think scientists, I don't want to just say scientists, you know, it's anyone who's going with a very analytical and a completely rational approach is, in a sense, looking through different eyes. I want to point out that how perhaps a very civilized Western scientist or rational human being, let's say, or logical human being would think is about the monk who doesn't have, for example, sense. You see, is that, oh my God, he's cutting himself from the joys of life. You know, it's like, God, how could he, you know, die as a virgin, right? For example, these ideas come. But then you see, you're judging that man for doing that, right? For having this ability to perhaps have, you know, sex, but he's instead, the person is, he's renounced stuff. You know, he's like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm just sitting still, none of your business, I'm doing my own path, you know. So you see that person is, in a sense, aware of what was going on before he had to apply that action. What that means is that similarly, I guess, the Lama or the monk or the Zen master, I want to say Zen master, I think that's a healthy role model for people. The Zen master, I'm going to say that. The Zen master is very the same yogi would soon see that similarly the scientist who is not acknowledging what the yogi is doing is, in a sense, cutting himself out from a greater good. So similarly, that means the yogi is not stupid. You know what I mean? I mean, how scientists are very childlike to me. Because they think these people don't understand logic. They think they're not the same instrument. Buddy, we're all human beings. Okay? Regardless of how we understand concepts or whatever, the machinery has a similarity, you know? However, the usage of the machinery doesn't. In other words, how different people are being alive means there are different methods of utilizing body. There are different bodies of thought as well. And we see, so how are we seeing that? We're seeing things that are greater than our individuality. You need to see that in order for your individual sense of being to expand into a greater experience, you will eventually recognize that you are part of something greater. Okay? Because if you're not part of something greater, where are you? And that is where you begin saying, nowhere, nothing, doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make it through your understanding of only the senses. It is not just based on the senses. It is an experience greater than the senses. And this is very hard to explain to someone whose attention is constantly on a fixed simulation of reality. You know? And that perhaps happened because you see what happened in Nazi Germany. And we see that one man began to speak in a way where other men forgot their voice. Other men forgot their decency, their humanity. Human beings who allow themselves to see other human beings are hurt are not sensitive to the quality of life. And when I say quality of life, guys, it is not just based on the senses, there's more. So what's happening is that when different branches of knowledge, different branches of human understanding, when different human beings talk to one another, their understanding of self becomes into a greater sense of being. Where we are not my truth or your truth, we are the space that both of them are present in. These are valuable acts to yourself. Now, I like to think about immediate application. What can we immediately apply? And we can see that the first thing that every person can do is admit if they're wrong, or admit that they're right, you know? But admitting that you're wrong and admitting you're right are different consciousness levels. That means you're paying attention to different things. So study your humanity and see that it can be understood only through a greater vision. Because we might be insecure because we think people could be hallucinating. But it is not about hallucination being a public thing. Every human being, would Noah be in an asylum right now? That's what I'm asking. Would Noah be in an asylum? Think about it, Noah's Ark, would that guy be in an asylum right now? You see, in another person's mind, yes, but in his own mind, no. Life communicates to you in the way it does, and let life communicate with you amazingly, creatively, beautifully, infinitely. Let your lessons happen to you playfully. What that means is that regardless of, in a sense, my organized activities which are scheduled, I also let myself throughout the day to receive some lessons from unknown. So in other words, I explore the unknown. I explore the opposite of my ideas. And I also explore, everything. Because if you can see it, it's observable. It's always pointing to something new. So sometimes I think about a question. And let's say I think about the question, why am I here? And I see that what happens is that when I close my eyes, after asking that question and opening them again, I see that the answer was always here. We are instruments, guys. Make music. You know? We, in a sense, again, also need to be very kind. The Buddha has this quote, if your compassion does not include yourself, it is incomplete. What does that mean? That means stop judging yourself so hard and know that an explorer doesn't have self-judgment. You have self-understanding, you don't have self-judgment. So work with this. Let your knowingness of how to approach the unknown be recognized within your greatest ability in this moment, in this instant. You're good. You can do it. We are greater drivers. I may choose to maybe in 10 years become the greatest pilot or whatever, if I have that idea. And I realize there's an important sense, because before that I'm aware of my consciousness. In other words, my relationship with my own unknown experience has revealed to me methods and understandings that are greater in suggestion of all that I've observed. In other words, feel that you're with a friend, and this friend is, in a sense, the unknown exploration of life. So you're always receiving new information because your ideas are breaking the moment they're made. They're being made. Before we can even introduce our names, man must learn of himself from the silence. A lot of people in the future or now, or anyone who hears this, I think this would benefit you in some way. Allow children to learn from themselves, also from nature. Go to a park, go to a very nice nature trail or something, and just let your child engage and see what happens. And you see that he's learning from a different form of intelligence. So you're putting him in a different playground. In other words, you're giving him a moment with engagement with something that is more omniscient, that is omnipotent. I think, guys, this is how the school is. In other words, one idea of school is how you're going to school normally, and another idea of school is how life is teaching you lessons at every stage of your life. So regardless of what year you pass or what certification you get, you still need to observe every moment of your life. You need to let every moment, in a sense, refine and always be refining and showing you the value of now. And the value of what now could be, which is everything. So what that means is, in a sense, once you see that, you begin to see infinity present. It had existed in your past and in your future. Once you have done the thing you thought you could not do, you have become a greater meaning for that which even created the dictionary. Man is utilizing concepts and thoughts as technology. But the technology of being is of a different application. For when we look at ourselves, you see that your face is a combination of your parents' composition. And at the same time you see, but your shape, your race, is a composition that's present for everyone, every other human being. So man, the voice of man. And you see when man is trying to access his collective presence, in other words, how there's a sense of unified being among the separate entities that are, in a sense, trying to be more coherent. You see that the violinist knows how to play with the strings. What does that mean? What is that? What does your success mean? Your success means, perhaps for many, that you didn't know the way, now you know the way. And that's in one context. Now you're going to another context and there's a different one. Beauty is a certain light. It is a glow. It is beautiful. It is unexplainable. Some experiences, all you can say is, man, it was a very bright experience. I don't know how else to tell it to you. Because minds are being spoken to differently. Understanding can work with an unknown sense of creativity that might make you think that there is a God, but it actually is showing you that the quality of beingness you are interacting with is giving you the next understanding. So everything is a stepping stone. But if you're not aware of the stepping stone, you keep making the same type of jump. So we want to see how can you jump higher. And jumping higher means you need to figure out what's true for you. In other words, if something, for example, anyone else says is not true for you, why is that idea there? Do you know what I mean? Why look at it like that? Why not see that understanding always takes you towards your omniscient self, the omniscient being. Creation is not a game, because all games are perceived within the moment, as is all creation. For many might think that we are a creation in which the Creator has left us. But there are many different views of creators, as many views, there are differences there are in creation. So no particle has, I don't want to say particle. No person has to keep looking at any experience if they don't want to. In other words, once you become aware, you have conscious control over the alteration of yourself. And it's very hard to explain. There's a lag. What I mean by that is that you see that, for example, that what intuition could be said to be is, in a sense, like I'm sitting down in a room and my awareness is no longer just focused in my body. It's completely to the room. So it's as if I have the awareness of the whole space of the room. So in a sense, I just have a knowing who's coming close to the room before anyone else does, and suddenly I have that sense of knowing, you know? And you see that what is your awareness is your engagement with how you're creatively seeing life. Intuition can have a face of imagination. I mean, you can try to imagine you're being in a cool story and you're going on, but as long as you know it's just a story. What does that mean is that do not preach truth, but preach that the story is always observable. So all is true based on one's conditioned consideration, because we're usually conditioned here. You don't raise your game by tiring you out in a system you don't understand. You begin to understand the system. You begin to see what's happening behind open doors, and once you behind closed doors, and once you ask that question, you actually, that's an awesome title as well. Look at stuff behind open doors. You know? In other words, enter those rooms. Because you can only know how to free yourself, and only you can see your chains. You can see your limitations because you've conceived those limitations. Instant freedom is the right of every human being. I mean, just relax about it. We don't have to, you know what I mean? I mean, like, I thought about it in this sense. I was born in 1991. So why must I think that my evaluation, if I do something, why must I use the imagination of the past, which is so ancient, you know? Why should my judging system of my actions be based on the past? And you see, it shouldn't just be based on the past, and it shouldn't just be based on the future, it should be based on the whole spectrum. Always observe your whole spectrum. See your truth and see your fantasy, see your fantasies as truth, and see your truth as fantasies. So just explore this area of yourself and obtain this value of learning. In other words, guys, what I'm trying to explain in a sense is, you know how in video games the character is always going and gaining some form of experience, some form of collection, right? I want you to, for a second, just stop thinking about the video game. Stop thinking about how the CDs are placed in the shop, and just see the mark. Guys, humanity's biggest assignment is to understand symbology. Because by being aware of symbology, eventually you have an awareness that is more than just the symbol. And that is where we want to head in our understanding. So let us be guided in that sense. I need to end this off, guys. And I want to say that death is a personal choice. Because, trust me, man, I knew I could read a million science textbooks. I knew where the science section in the library is. The library was, but the excitement value is more important. In other words, the quality of my life is made in a way where my observance of myself is not playing around with my memories of past, which are refabrications, but are, in a sense, a complete absorption by the present moment to be the experience of everything that I am perceiving and being. In other words, I'm acknowledging the senses and more. And in that moment, you have no judgment because you're in the present, because you want to hear. When you want to learn, you're not judging things. And that is why you're not afraid of a judgment day. And that is why you see that the apocalypse was your fear of the unknown, and the unknown is something to be loved, not feared. Do not think you're going to be controlled. Why give yourself a story to not interact with something in a certain way? It's your choice. Allow yourself to live with clarity, and ask for clarity, guys. Ask it loud. In other words, if you're somewhere, and guys, this is very important. They say there's no stupid questions. Yeah, there's no stupid questions, guys. I don't care. Respect your own intelligence and ask any question that instantly wants to come out of your mouth because you feel you need the answer. Go for that. Roar. Because you don't need to think that you're a lion or a sheep. But if you think you're a sheep, then you will try to be the lion. Everyone in reality now feels like a sheep trying to be a lion. But you don't need to try. You need to see that all the sheep are lions. That's the difference. All the sheep were just lions. The lions were just hallucinating. Not hallucinating, they were just freaking out. They just had a very simple misunderstanding of a very existential duality, and this is how the format of the design approached, you know. So shed light to this, I guess, and let us feel greater senses of being and attainment. Thank you.